there are moments that we would never ask for, and we are thrust into these moments, and we don't want it. We don't like the heat. We don't want the attention. But you realize that it really is about more than you.
It was a stunning announcement that shook the political landscape in Georgia's capital city.
I felt it my first year. I wasn't sure that I would run again.
Sometimes you just have to dream bigger than your circumstances. Whether or not it's dreaming that you will one day graduate or dreaming that you will one day change the world.
Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms making Glamour magazine's annual Women of the Year list.
When people look at relationships, they don't know what goes into those relationships, and relationships are not perfect. I think at the end of the day, the key for us has just been not giving up on each other. Sometimes he gives up on me, sometimes I give up on him, but thank God we've never given up on each other at the same time.
Yes, you guys, Fearlessly Living with Arian Simone, and I am here with the legendary, yes, honorable Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. Yes.
Well, look, I feel like I should be bowing down to you because you are killing the game.
Oh,
You've always done it, but you're doing it on an even different level.
Thank you.
And as my grandmother always said, you know, it always works for our good.
It does.
So it's working for your good.
Woo, so much. I wanted to first start off with asking you, did you always see this, though, for yourself?
I didn't see this, but I saw something. And it's amazing just how you can pour life into people with just your words. I remember Mrs. Murray, my grandmother's next door neighbor, used to say to her, I don't know what that girl's going to be, but she's going to be something. And my dad was an entertainer, so I always wanted to be an entertainer, but I don't have any talent. That's not my ministry. I can't sing, I can't dance, so I didn't get any of that. But there was always something in me that wanted to be something. I never thought that I would be mayor of Atlanta.
You didn't? The reason why I
no.
asked that, your resume is like the quintessential resume to be a politician.
And again, even my going to law school, when I graduated from FAMU, I didn't like Tallahassee. I didn't like the small town. When I was graduating, I knew that for me to do something on TV news or whatever it may be, I would have to start in a small town.
Yeah.
And I was just ready to go back home, which
Atlanta.
was Atlanta. And when I applied to law school, it was a delay not to have to get a real job.
So you applied to law school as a delay?
Yes, it was just so.
Oh my gosh.
It was so I wouldn't have to go get a job. So I used to hang out with some guys who went to Morehouse, and they were all applying to law school. And I'm like, oh, we doing law school now? Oh, okay. Well, yeah, okay. I'm going to do that too. And FAMU used to have the short course, and they would have all of these TV executives who would come in and do like a crash course for us over the weekend. The beauty of FAMU. There's people from New York, Los Angeles, these big media markets. And I remember sitting down in my one-on-one session saying, I'm really torn. Should I pursue something in journalism or should I go to law school? And they said, by all means, go to law school. You can always come back and do this. Go to law school. And so that's
But you know
what
why
happened.
I was shocked when I was reviewing your resume? Of course, I know you personally, but I took the time and I said, she was always going to be a politician. I said, she must have known as a child. Because when you see the communications background, then the law degree, everything just started adding up. And I was like, oh, all of her steps were saying she planned to be mayor of this city as a kid.
No, even when in high school, I would run for student government stuff, but I think that was because I wanted to be in the yearbook and be on the assembly programs. And even at FAMU, I wasn't involved in student government or anything like that, but I remember being at FAMU and finding my way in a car, a van with some Omegas and some other people, and we found some school-sponsored event to go to D.C. And at that time, you could ride down Pennsylvania Avenue past the White House. And I remember riding past the White House, and I went, that's the White House. I'm like, and it has doors. Like, you can go in the White House? How do you get in the White House? I want to be in the White House. And again, just these things that God places on your heart, and you don't even know what they're about.
You thinking you're having a random encounter, and it was truly just a prophetic moment.
It was
because you ended up in the White House. Yeah. Even after being mayor, you ended up in the White House.
It was seeing something that was possible. I mean, literally seeing that the White House had front doors. I'm like, I can walk through those front doors. I'm like, who works in there? How do you get in there? I want to work in there. And then however many years later, after I left the mayor's office, going to work at the White House.
And just doors represent opportunity.
They do.
They do.
They do. But you know this from FAMU, just the exposure to what's possible.
Yes.
What were those moments for you?
I think the moments for me started, though, in my upbringing in Detroit. And I tell people this story that growing up in Detroit, it was 88% Black at the time. And we saw millionaires and people with a lot of money that looked like us. And whether you had it or not, you were exposed to it. And my parents paid the cable bill not to AT&T or Xfinity. We paid it to a company called Barton Cablevision. They had the contract for the entire city because Mayor Coleman Young had that the minority, basically we didn't have a minority mandate. It was that the demographics of the city had to match all the demographics of the contracts.
Oh, wow.
So we saw a lot of Black wealth.
Oh, wow.
Just a while, yeah. And that is tough to get past. So
that's even more impressive
than the 30-something% we have here in Atlanta. Yes,
right.
It is.
Yeah.
If you are enjoying this experience, be sure to leave a review. You can leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I look forward to receiving it. Now back to the episode. It was right on. It was 1 for 1, and watching my parents pay the cable bill to a Black man, and being able to go on that side of town and see that Black man worth 9 figures that we were paying the cable bill to, and he was touchable, he was reachable. And his wife was just grand. I mean, Bella would just show up with diamonds and furs, and it was just like, wow. I think that's when those moments for me showed me it was possible. Fam, you just amplified it.
Oh, I love that.
So,
I mean, that's an incredible legacy that you still remember what that mayor did for people across the city.
Yes. My questions of even getting advice from you right now is in the middle of this lawsuit that I am dealing with, and even just what comes with being on a large stage. Like, I didn't ask for this. I didn't even imagine this. Of course, I definitely, like you said, there was always something in you. I definitely saw myself making an impact. I've definitely always believed in being great. I've definitely have had all of that in me. But having to deal with just all lights on, okay, how did you function through all of that? Because if you're saying you didn't plan to necessarily go in with the intention of, I'm going to be mayor of the city, but yet you handled everything with just such grace.
Well, thank you. But you know this, there are moments that we would never ask for, and we are thrust into these moments, and we don't want it. We don't like the heat. We don't want the attention. But you realize that it really is about more than you. Mm-hmm. It's about who you were created to be and all that you represent. And I've told you this, I've compared you to Queen Esther. I mean, you were created for such a time as this, when so many people are under attack and everything we represent seems to offend certain people. God has called you to be the face of the fight. So how you handle it is that you get up and you take it one day at a time, and you do the best you can do that day. And then when you go to sleep, you just pray that God's going to wake you up and give you new grace, more mercy for the next day. And you'll look back and you'll go, man, I made it through. Like, I knew I was a bad girl. But it's gonna be confirmation, and not just for you, for so many people who are watching you. Mm-hmm. Think of the number of people who had never even heard about VCs and funds and didn't know that this was something that Black people even did or could participate in. So now not only are people standing behind you, fighting beside you, but they're also being educated. And they're also dreaming bigger. So you got it. And he didn't pick just anybody to be the face. I mean, God picked you to be the face. And it represents so much, and you're representing us so well. I mean, I've seen you on doing the national interviews and standing tall, standing strong.
Thank you.
And I know on the other side of this, everything that you touch is going to be bigger and better because of this.
Thank you. You have been married for 29 years, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, Lord. Okay, you have got to give everybody the secrets of a successful marriage, because we need more examples of what you represent.
You know, I think that people see the Instagram version of marriage and the relationship goals, and that's what I want. Well, I'm not going to post on the day we're not speaking or the day we're fighting or you know, when I'm slamming doors and rolling eyes. I'm not going to do that.
You slamming doors and rolling eyes in your house.
No, I never do that. But, you know, I'm not going to show that. So I just say that to say, when people look at relationships, they don't know what goes into those relationships. And relationships are not perfect. And our relationship is far from perfect. We've been together since I was 21. We met in law school just a few months after I graduated from FAMU. So that's a lot of growing up together. Mm-hmm. And I think at the end of the day, the key for us has just been not giving up on each other. Sometimes he gives up on me, sometimes I give up on him, but thank God we've never given up on each other at the same time. And the basis of our love story has always been this very solid friendship that we have. I memean, we genuinely like each other.
I love it.
And we laugh together a lot. And you know, I'm grateful that for so many people who haven't been able to make it through, that we've been able to stand the test of time. I'm very thankful for that.
I love it. And you have 4 beautiful children.
We do. Thank you.
But can you talk about that journey as far as just adoption?
Oh, yes.
And at what point did you decide that? Versus, I don't think that people talked about infertility or anything back then, or what that looks like. You were like, I'm a mother.
Yeah.
And I know I'm a mother, and I'm doing this.
Well, again, we met when I was 21, so I had never even lived on my own. I always had a roommate in college. So when we got married, I had a whole life that I planned to live. Mm-hmm. In terms of working and being a professional and all that. So we put off having kids for a while. I remember my grandmother would say, she would call me and she'd say, well, you know, it's a story on the news today about people who can't have children. You may want to watch that. And I'm like, Grandmama, I can have children. I just don't want to have children. But, you know, I don't know if something was in her spirit or because we had been married for so long. But fast forward, when we became intentional about having kids, you know, it wasn't our choice. It was, you know, just wasn't happening. We went through in vitro fertilization. I went through multiple surgeries. It was just a very emotional and taxing.
Yes.
You know, financially.
Oh, yeah.
It was like just wearing us down. Emotionally, we were just spent. And I had a neighbor who had adopted, and I ended up talking to her one day about adoption. Derek was interested. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. That would mean I've given up my faith. We're going to have a baby. We're going to have a baby. And at some point, someone said, it doesn't mean that you don't have faith. It just means that there may be another way that God intends for you to be a mother. So we ended up going through the adoption process with 1, then 2, and then 4, because our youngest are twins. And I can just say emphatically that if I had to go through all of that again to get to the 4 that I have now, I'd do it all over again.
Oh.
And at that time, and I so love that women are now freezing their eggs.
I froze mine.
Oh, I'm so happy.
I have 24. That's the first time people even hearing this. I have 24 on ice. Everybody's like, what?
No, that's,
Dr. Jackie's like, what? Everybody I do know who's gone through that process, they're like, Arian, you have more eggs than anybody I know. They almost use me as, I guess you would say, I don't want to say a case study, but I went in at 37 and I went back at 40, not to freeze again. I already had eggs on ice. And I had more eggs at 40.
Wow.
Than I did at 37. And she said, we have answers for a lot of things, but we don't have answers for this.
Now, that's incredible.
Yeah. She was like, this is like a freaking nature moment. And I was like,
yeah.
They're like, do you mind if we take them? I said, take them. I said, they're like, we're not going to experiment on them or anything, but you are extremely fertile. Do you mind if, and I was like, I came in here for y'all to check my fertility. I didn't come in here for all this.
No, but that's for people who don't understand that process.
They were like, whoa.
You go all the shots and things, and then,
it's a lot.
And then they look at the eggs, see what's happening. Then they do the retrieval, and you lose some, and it gets pared down even more. So that's a lot.
It does, because I think the first time I started with, it's been a minute now. Maybe I've started with 12 and ended with 9. Then I started with 10 and ended with 9. I think that's it. And then maybe it was 9 and then 6. Either way, I know it's 24 on ice. So yeah, they were like, wait, we want to go and extract. I was like, I didn't come in here for that. They were like, I'm trying to tell you this, we don't see this like this.
No,
so I was just like,
huge.
okay. I said, we'll do it. And then even after that, Dr. Fogel, my doctor through the process. Oh, you know her?
I remember, yeah. Look, I saw just about every doctor in Atlanta, yes.
And she was like, can I go one more time? I said, Dr. Fogel, she was like, I know your future is secure, but she was like, you are producing a lot of eggs.
No, that's
and I was
great.
like, oh gosh. She said, Arian, honestly, she said, I think you would still get knocked up just naturally. And I was just like, okay. And then I went for it. I was like, oh my gosh. But yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
and I've never shared that before, but yeah, this is a moment. I know you are enjoying this episode. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Now back to the episode.
But I love that you are taking control of that.
But let me tell you, that was a question for my faith too. So when Dr. Jackie, who is my OBGYN, she kept saying, Arian, do this. I said, no, I believe Dr. Jackie. I said, I'm not trying to interrupt God. I believe. She said, Arian, I'm a Christian woman too. And I'm trying to tell you, if I could go back, I would. Because she's a 2-time breast cancer survivor. Yeah. So it was taken from her. So she's like, if I could go back, I would. I'm telling you. And it was a struggle for me. But right after she told me, my cousin Candace, this was like all in the same week. She just had a random conversation with me. She was like, I think you need to put some eggs on ice. I was like, you and Dr. Jackie? And then my best friend, Kelly, who's a mother of 2, she says, Arian, I think you should put some eggs on ice. I said, well, 3 people in a week, I'm done.
Yeah.
I said, we got the Father, Son, Holy Ghost. I'm about to have to just go do this. So it was really that reinforcement and encouragement. Because when Dr. Jackie came to me, I was so resistant. I was like, is this saying that I don't believe if I go do this? I was like, because I believe, and my faith is so strong, I felt like I was contradicting my faith at first.
Faith without works is dead.
You aren't lying. So when the next person,
yeah.
I said, oh, I'm about to have to go make a move. And
I wish that, well, I didn't have all those eggs to produce. Everything we got out, we put back in. But I remember even having a conversation with my fertility doctor about a surrogate. I'm like, well, where do you find a surrogate? And he's like, well, there are agencies and some people go overseas. And again, all this was just a very foreign concept that people weren't talking about. But now you see people who are regularly using surrogates. They're talking about using surrogates, talking about freezing eggs. And I think that's...
Was your neighbor white?
My neighbor was not white.
Okay.
No,
I was wondering.
Yeah.
'Cause when
African-American woman.
When I went to go freeze my eggs, I noticed that in the white community, this was like so common.
And what I also used to notice, again, going back to late 90s, early 2000s, when you get that call, come in, because you're on this schedule.
Yeah.
I would be the only black woman in the waiting room, and the room would have 50 women sitting there.
And it would be a testament of two things. One, that it was discussed more in their community, but two, the access to it, because it costs so much.
Yes, and at that time,
our community couldn't necessarily afford all of that.
And thankfully, more plans are covering fertility treatments.
Oh,
when we went through fertility treatments, nothing was covered. The
Gotta pay for all of
medicine,
that.
the doctor's visits, any of that. And I remember we got some financial plan. We could get 3 rounds. So if it didn't happen with the 3, and when we hit that 3, we were tapped out. We went back, and I think that's when I saw Dr. Fogel. I think she was the last person I saw. We were considering going through another round, and I had fibroids, and I just had all kinds of, every time I go in, the fibroids would have come back, and I was going to have another surgery. I mean, I've lost count of the surgeries I had. Yeah, it's a lot.
Hearing this experience of yours, the area of wellness now is more common. Like, you probably didn't even know then, should I be in therapy with all of what's going on? So were you in therapy during that time when all of that was taking place?
At some point, yes, because it was such a strain.
That is a lot.
It's a lot.
I couldn't even imagine that.
And then
that
on top of that, like at that time, we both still had student loans.
Yeah, and that's the financial strain.
We bought a new house, and it was a lot of pressure, and then you're just constantly feeling like a failure every single month. It's like, I failed again.
So what picked you back up?
Faith. And, I wish that for people, and I know people have depression and they have other things going on. There's so many people that you just wish could see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Because when you're going through stuff, you don't see that light. You don't feel that light. But for me, coming from a family of faith, especially watching my grandmother's faith, like I always knew even on my worst day, it was going to be okay. Because she had always taught me that. That's what I'd always learned in church, that it will always work for our good. And on the other side of it, I have these 4 amazing children that I had this whole plan and how I was going to birth these children. But I couldn't imagine my life without these 4.
Oh, it's amazing just when we surrender to God's plan, the enjoyment that he just has for us, the fulfillment that he just has for us. When we just surrender, so often people won't surrender. Like, you were like, I'm going to choose his way of how this is supposed to be in the earth. And had you continued to resist that, you would have missed out on all these destiny moments with these beautiful 4 kids that you have. It's just truly amazing. What do you see next? And I say that because you have accomplished so much. Is next retirement? Because I'm like, what else is she gonna do?
Someone described it to me this way, and I love this. Like, I'm living in the flow right now.
I like that.
So I can't say what's next. I'm just open to whatever may be out there. And I'm real big on waiting to hear from God. And I've not definitively heard. I know he's speaking. He's always speaking to us. I've not heard it yet. So for me, I'm working on my book right now.
I love that.
Doing a lot of speaking across the country, which has been my nice, pleasant surprise. working on some other projects. I'm doing some consulting. So I'm staying really, really busy. I'm cleaning out lots of closets, right? I hid things for years. So I'm super, super busy. I'm just waiting on God's direction on what he would have me to do next.
I love that, living in the flow. Yeah. Well, you all have heard it on Fearlessly Living with Arian Simone. So if you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time.